Okay, so I have a question for you. What is the difference between happiness and joy? So most people don't know that much about their brain chemicals, but I'm pretty sure that soon this is going to be part of what we consider common sense. We all constantly have these chemicals flowing through us. When they're in our heads, we call them neurotransmitters. When they're in our bodies, we call them hormones. Today I'm going to teach you about the 4 most important brain chemicals that are flowing through your system. 3 of them are our happy chemicals. So I'm going to introduce you to your happy chemicals, but it's also really important that we understand cortisol, which is the chemical of stress. So we can kind of think of our head like a cauldron. And these are the different recipes that come through. And when our cortisol is really high, there's basically no room for anything else. So cortisol is the chemical that puts us into our fight, flight, freeze response. Yeah, you know the one, right? It's when our hearts start beating, when our muscles get really tense, we might get sweaty, we might get butterflies and all sorts of things. About 15 different things happen inside our body when our cortisol starts to come up. And it's not really healthy for us to have high cortisol levels all day long, and it can really impact our mental wellness. So number 1 skill we need to learn is where is our cortisol on a scale of 0 to 10. We want to keep it down between about 2 and 5 is a healthy state. Number 1 way we drop our cortisol is deep breaths. The next 3 chemicals we're going to learn about: oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin. And all of these chemicals make us feel great. So let's talk about oxytocin. My favorite one. Oxytocin is sometimes called the cuddle hormone because it's released with physical contact. Oxytocin when we make eye contact with other people. We get it when we share food. We get it when we act with kindness towards other people, so altruism. And oxytocin primes us to read other people's facial expressions and to read other people's body language and to imagine a situation from their point of view. So obviously oxytocin is really important in social skills and empathy. So how do we feel when our oxytocin is high? We feel loved, we feel safe, we feel connected, we feel seen, we feel heard, we feel understood. When our oxytocin is low, we feel lonely, we feel sad, we feel disconnected, right? And all these 3 happy chemicals are actually mediated in our hypothalamus in the middle of our brain. It's like a lemon right in the middle. And this is the part of the brain that we share with mammals. So this part of our brain, the limbic system, organizes the release of oxytocin. It's like these little chemicals that go through our whole system, through our bloodstream. And then we have these receptor cells throughout our whole body for the molecule to go into. Over half of the receptor cells for oxytocin are in our heart. Hence the feeling we get when we lose someone that we love. Those little receptor cells are waiting for that molecule and it's not going to come anymore. And that's when we get that splitting feeling of heartache. It's a physical, biological thing that happens. Okay, the next type of happiness we're going to look at is dopamine. And dopamine is totally different to oxytocin. Dopamine makes us feel sharp, it makes us feel alert, it makes us feel inspired, focused, alive. It gives us that sense of mission and forward momentum. So when we are feeling bright and alert, dopamine is flowing. When our dopamine drops, body language changes, we start to feel bored, we feel apathy, we feel like we can't be bothered, we feel like we don't have energy. So are there things we can do to improve our dopamine? Yes, have a drink of water, being hydrated. It's really hard to release dopamine when we're dehydrated. There are certain foods, there are specific exercises, some release more dopamine than others, so we can tweak this. Last type of joy we're going to look at today is serotonin. Now, serotonin is the chemical we release when we feel confident, when we feel powerful, when we feel like our status is rising. So this is the chemical that's connected to self-esteem and self-worth. When our serotonin is dropping, again, we lose muscle tone. Most of our 80% of our serotonin receptors are in our gastrointestinal tract, in our guts. So we start to feel anxious in there, and dropping serotonin is the precursor to suicide, and it's also connected to anxiety. So are there things we can do to improve our serotonin? Yes, absolutely. There's certain foods, there's certain exercises, sleep and water. There's different life hacks that we can do to help our serotonin levels improve so that we get a good, healthy baseline of serotonin. So, I talk to my kids about this. My kids are 7 and 9. And at the end of the day, I don't say to them anymore, how was your day? Because all they say is good. So now I say to my kids, did anything happen that dropped your serotonin today? Or I say, when was your oxytocin the highest today? So maybe now you're kind of starting to get a sense that our mind is like a cauldron, and there's these different ingredients that make up the different recipes. And the ingredients are cortisol, oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin. And as we understand these ingredients, we can start tweaking or managing or creating different recipes depending on the state that we want to be in. So let's go back to our original question. What's the difference between happiness and joy? And maybe happiness is a natural biological reaction when things go well and we get what we want. But maybe joy is something different. Maybe joy is more that skill of being able to find a peace that is not dependent on external circumstances. And maybe joy is the ability to create a happiness that comes from within.